penny for your thoughts has a whole new meaning when our interviews may be the only private thing left. In this day and age, the boundaries between public and private spaces grow ever thin. Consumers and students may not be paying the right price for their personal privacy. The rise of technology and Big Brother has permitted new methods of gathering information on individuals, reducing unique people to numbers and objects for targeting advertisers in surveillance programs. This dismissal of personal freedoms and loss of privacy stands against our very pledge, with liberty and justice for all. We cannot have freedoms without justice, or justice without freedoms. For these reasons, I affirm the following resolution. Privacy ought to be a higher priority on school campuses over security than it is at present. For my value, I will be using freedom. Immanuel Kant said that humans everywhere have the idea of freedom, the presumed fact that freedom is a universal idea. Freedom can be argued as a right, but for this debate, I will treat it as voluntary actions performed when given alternatives. Before we start, I'd like to define a few terms. Freedom is the ability to act, exist, and think of own free will when presented multiple options without external pressure. Privacy is a state of being free from observation or disturbance from others. In simple terms, U.S. Justice Louis Brandeis called it the right to be left alone. And security is a state of being free from danger or threats. Contention 1. The resources poured into national defense and security has not had any tangible effect on improving security domestically, particularly with schools. Point A. After 9/11, Congress approved 4 dozen bills and resolutions that has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into counterterrorism for the sake of security. Intrusive surveillance activities and other means of intelligence gathering has become so huge that the covert world has recognized it as unwieldy and so secretive that no one really knows how much money it costs, how many people it employs, how many programs exist within it, or exactly how many agencies do the same work. In that time period, the number of Americans killed by terrorism in post-9/11 period is a fraction of the number of Americans killed by mass shooting. Only $22 million a year are spent on gun violence research, which is minuscule compared to what it spends on other major health-related threats. In terms of action in investment, there is a colossal gap in how the federal government has prioritized stopping one form of violence versus another. Contention 2. Invasive policing policies lead to self-censorship, which has a negative impact on freedom of speech. Point A. While university campuses champion the notion of free speech, new technology has threatened this idea. For example, the University of Virginia Police Department has begun monitoring social media of its students to prevent and mitigate threats against the school. This program is called Social Sentinel, costs $18,500 a year, which scans public social media messages and alerts police when particular keywords and phrases are used. Some words obviously are kill, die, or shoot, but company founder, CEO Gary Margolis said that there are thousands of keywords in this company's library of harm. This costs the school resources, not just monetarily, but also overwhelms safety departments with hundreds of different leads to follow. This software sends alerts to police who then look at the whole context of the post for authentic threats. While some alerts are false alarms, the program claims to not be Big Brother surveillance system, the campus has access to the program and can possibly tailor additional words to its database. If the campus is able to monitor its students for conflicting ideals or criticism based on keywords deemed inappropriate, the surveillance system is no longer protecting the students' right to freedom. Security on campuses are not a priority when alerts are still accessible 30 days afterwards. When schools monitor activist groups or particular student organizations, civil dissent can be suppressed, which defeats the prospect of freedom in this environment which champions free speech. Point B. People change their behavior when they realize that their social media activity is being monitored. According to Pew Research, most Americans have heard of the government surveillance programs, and some have changed their behavior because of it. 87% of them are aware of the surveillance programs. Among those, 25% aware, and 22% of adults overall say that they have changed the way that they use technology, at least somewhat, after the Snowden revelations. Additionally, 61% of those aware of the program say they have become less confident that the programs are serving the public interest. In conclusion, our national defense system costs an exorbitant price in the name of protection, while the average citizen offers their privacy and freedom in the name of security. We have seen that this practice does not protect students, and sometimes students may be unfairly profiled by the very campus they attend for expressing their private thoughts.
Okay, so you said liberty and justice for all as one of your first starting points. I just wanted to say, like, how are you going to get justice for the people who have already lost their lives due to school shootings because of lack of security?
Well, justice is mostly provided by legislation and law. And so, in this sense, justice is not given to these victims. Justice prevents this situation from happening in the first place. But we don't have these sort of justice systems set up. Like, we don't have enough restrictive gun laws that's already in place.
You also said that, like, the social sentinel is like what schools and campuses use to scan social media, and you're basically saying that it's wasting a lot of money because it's an expensive program. But wouldn't you rather waste a lot of money to save a bunch of lives than to just worry about the money?
Well, in this sense, the money that's being used can be used for other different programs that the school is using. And so, in this sense, the money is not being used very wisely.
Okay, so the majority have their mindset on a simple statement, which goes along the lines of, oh, but that'll never happen to me. And I feel like most kids and most teenagers are like that. They always think that bad things will never happen to them. And that's how most of the people think. And since there's been a lot of like a spike in the trend of like school shootings and just like hurting other people, I think it's time to change that mentality because more and more people are getting hurt. And in this semester alone, we've had about two shooting threats in San Jose State. So I think it's a real possibility that it could happen to not just like anyone, but it can particularly happen to us because we are we're not high school, San Jose State students. So I think it would be unethical to provide security and like aid to help these students, and I don't think it would be considered like unethical or like a construction of or obstruction of their privacy because you are providing security, and at the end of the day it's better to have your life than to have your life monitored. So for my first main point, I just wanted to say that increasing security measures by installing cameras is not unethical. We have the tools right in our grasp to help students from being victims of mass shootings, yet we don't use them. So before I go into it, the dictionary defines privacy as the state of or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed by other people. So based on this definition, there's no real way of having privacy when you're in public. You're always going to be seen, you're always going to be looked at. There's no way to really have privacy when you are in public. And so the School Safety Network says it has recorded about 50 threats a day on average since the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where 17 people were killed. And 50 times a day, that's a lot of threats. I think we can all agree on that. And even if they are blank threats, it's very like scary to know that you never know when one of them is going to be real. Our lives as students are at risk every day because of the highly popularized school shooting. The stakes are extremely high, and we shouldn't really be so stuck and stubborn on having privacy 24/7 when we could be safe instead. So having cameras around campus for security could decrease not only school shootings, but assaults like sexual assault on campus. And the Department of Justice showed that 1 in 4 college women are sexually assaulted before graduation. And thebestcolleges.com stated that the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, estimated that at least 95% of the school campus rapes in the U.S. do go unreported. So only 5% of people do not get raped. That's like very shocking, and the fact that it's unreported, it's like very sad to know that like there's nothing being done. And with security cameras, it'd be caught on tape, and we'll get justice for the rape victims or the sexually assaulted victims. Thebestcolleges.com also stated that this statistic reflects a dire need for increased campus prevention and support systems at our nation's colleges and universities. We pay a lot of money to go to school every semester, and what's the point if we're gonna end up losing a part of our self by being raped and mistreated on campus? So my second main point is security cameras would help the campus officials gain control of the campus, so crimes such as the ones I mentioned before won't happen. The campus administration and police would have visual control of the entire school, making the campus an actual safe environment. The campus administration would have visual control of the entire campus, making it safe. The crime rates on campus would decrease significantly due to the monitoring of the security cameras. And so only individuals with high security clearance would be able to actually watch the feed. So not random individuals can go. Not everyone have access to this feed. And I think it's the least we can do to provide and secure the safety of our students after all that we've been put through, especially after all these death threats. So in conclusion, I believe increasing security on campus would not be unethical, and it's the least we can do after all the victims.
All right, so you mentioned that increasing cameras on campus can lead to decreasing sexual assault, right? But then you listed a statistic that said 95% of rapes on campus are unrecorded. So how can cameras reduce this sexual assault if they're already unrecorded in the first place?
Because if it's caught on tape, then it would be recorded. And most sexual assault cases are dropped because of lack of evidence. And with video recording and surveillance, we'd have that. And those who did commit such crimes would face their punishment.
Okay. Also, you mentioned that cameras would be able to help school officials gain control of the campus, but then that's assuming that they don't have control in the first place. Don't we have police officers already on campus? What do they do?
Well, the DMH graffiti, the Debbie Moorhead graffiti, it was no one, like, to this day, it was a couple months ago, like 2 months ago, and to this day, no one still knows who it was. And that's a serious threat, and like I'm sure more than half of the campus did not want to come to school that day. And like they didn't do anything then, so what would they do like if it was real?
Okay. So my opponent has stated that it is better to have life than to have life monitored. However, she makes no claims about what her value is or her value premise. In her first contention, she states that it is not unethical for schools to use cameras, and that one of her points is that there is no privacy in public. However, there is a certain level of privacy expectation in the public as expressed in Roe v. Wade. Second, she stated that cameras can be used to decrease sexual assault because most of the time there isn't evidence provided in the case. However, this video evidence in the first place, the video evidence that is required isn't there in the first place. And if it hasn't been proven before, then it might not be able to be proven if we implement cameras. Okay,
so my opponent stated that it's better to have our school's tuition money go to better things other than is that what it's called? Social Sentinel?
Yes.
Okay, to Social Sentinel. But even in like public education, before Public Sentinel, there would the money would still not go to like useful classes, wouldn't go back to the classroom. So if it wasn't going there then, it wouldn't go there like without the Sentinel, and the Sentinel does keep us a bit safe because there have been an increased number of reportings, like I stated, 50 a day, that 50 times a day people threaten to shoot up the school. Again, he says that there's privacy when you're out, but when you're out, someone can catch you on social media recording, like just a simple, like all of us, we're on our phones, we're always on social media, like our phones follow us everywhere and our phones always record and everything. So in a sense, we were already being recorded. And there are statistics that state that you're caught in at least 50 to 70 cameras a day, even if you're not in campus where there isn't cameras.